Good evening, folks. How y'all doing? You're all very welcome to June Fest and Celtic Con presents Lockdown Chats. This is episode 4. So this is a very special episode. We have a few authors and from who all specialize in children's books, and we're going to have a quick chat with them there. So just before that, I just wanted to mention to like our website celticcon.com and of course junefest.ie. And if you like the content that the guys are creating and what we're helping to put together, if you want to make a donation to June Fest, it'd be greatly appreciated. All to keep the show on the road. So in tonight's episode, we have two special guests. One at the very, very beginning, we have a little lady called Lydia who has a booktastic podcast. So we'll have her speaking now in a minute, and then we'll introduce you to our authors. So first up is our Lydia. How are you, Lydia?
Hello.
So guys, Lydia's dad is on camera here because Lydia is just a little bit too young. So, but we'll all hear her loud and clear. So Lydia, can you tell us about your absolutely brilliant podcast, please?
I'll just quickly jump in if that's okay.
No problem at all.
Yeah, Lydia, do you want us to tell the guys how we got the podcast, why we decided to do the podcast?
Well, I love books and well, when I first knew that my dad did a podcast, I wanted one of my own. So we put this podcast together about books since I love books. And so far we have 9 episodes.
9 episodes. That's amazing. So, what kind of guests have you had on your podcast?
Mm,
She's had a couple of guests. We had a couple of guests from Bloomsbury Books last 2 weeks ago when we did our podcast, didn't we?
Shane Hegarty.
And Shane Hegarty as well. Shane is a big fan of the podcast as well.
Very good. I'm very jealous of you getting Shane Hegarty, by the way. He's a guest that we want to have at Celtic Con, so fair play to us.
Yeah, he did a good podcast interview with us. I think we got about 20 minutes, didn't we?
Yeah.
Very, very good.
The whole second part was nothing but a chat.
They're the best bits, sure. That's what we're doing now, you know.
Exactly.
Have you anything else there, Candice, or anything?
Yeah, no, we just wanted to say thank you to all the people who've taken the time to send us the books. I know Amanda's here tonight as well with us. And the idea of the podcast is whenever possible, we'll always try and support local books as well. That's a key thing for us, and that's why we got into a partnership with Woodbine Books in Kilcullen, because we wanted to give them as well a bit of a plug, and we felt that it was important as well because they were able to source us Irish authors and local authors as well. So the brilliant thing is that we've just been able to get our hands on those books. We do get a lot of books sent to us. The only thing is that generally authors send us books via PDF. So that's something that we generally don't run with because for Lydia, which I think is very important for children as well, there has to be a sensory issue with reading a book, and children have to have the book in their hands. And I think if you give somebody like Lydia a PDF on a laptop or on a tablet or something like that, there's not going to be the emotions and the feeling that you get from reading a book. So it's the only rule we generally have. We have a backlog of books, which is amazing. We've been inundated with books since we took it off. There, which is really great, and hopefully we're going to be able to get through them. But the other thing is as well, like we just don't promote new books as well. We like to give kids an opportunity to know about books that are maybe out in the market there for quite a while, which is why we've say done books like Jane Blonde, for example, which is kind of a book from a few years ago, but it's still very popular. And
Jane Bland.
yeah, exactly. And so that's one of the the main focuses of the podcast. I mean, really, the podcast is just about to have fun. It's to show that you can use technology in a positive way and have it advantageous towards using it in conjunction with your children, because I think a lot of times people tend to hand children something and leave them to it. Whereas if you can find a medium like say what we do, podcasting, where you can bring parents and children together For us, it's participating, and hopefully for parents and children out there, it's listening to our podcast, getting ideas about books, and maybe even doing their own podcasts. Because we're not in competition with anybody. We just want to get it sorted. I just a quick thing. I mean, without doing a plug, but the amazing thing for us was that we entered a very large competition with an international producer of podcast equipment, and the podcast we just put in a little trailer. There was over 3,000 entries in that competition, and we came second, which
Very good. That's
was
amazing.
amazing for us.
Yay!
So it's a fantastic thing, and I think what really proves is that with a podcast, if you have something different and something unique, it gets noticed. The only thing about podcasting is that you have to plug the hell out of them, because there's 150,000 podcasts, started every 2 months in the world. So that's that's what you're up against.
That's brilliant. Do you want to tell people where they get your podcast and what platforms?
Sure. Our podcast is on Anchor, but it's also supplemented on Apple, Google, and all of the other major platforms.
YouTube?
Yep, that's right. YouTube as well. We've just been recently on YouTube too. So if you just look up Lydia's Booktastic podcast anywhere on Google, it'll pop up on whatever platform you guys use.
That's brilliant. Thanks a million, Ken. Thanks very
Thank you.
much for coming on, and thanks a million, Lydia.
I'm Lydia.
Bye, Lydia.
She's very shy.
No problem. Thanks a million, guys. Thanks a million. Right, so guys, we're going to introduce you to our authors. So first up is I'm going to let them just speak for themselves. So Emma Jane, how are you?
Not too bad, Dave. How are you?
Grand. Could you just give a quick introduction to who you are, and so just let people quickly know who you are.
Yeah, so my name's Emma Jane Leeson, and I am the girl who tells stories about Johnny Magory. So we've 6 Johnny Magory books now at the minute, and it's all about Irish heritage and wildlife, but in a really fun way. I'm based on the old rhyme, would I tell you a story about Johnny Magory? Will it begin it? That's all it's in it.
Very, very good. So whereabouts are you based, Emma Jane?
Just outside of Prosperous in Balnafa.
Very good. I wasn't quite sure there earlier on. So we're all amazingly local authors on tonight's episode. So very, very good. So next up is Audrey Moore. How are you, Audrey?
David, how are you?
Not too bad. Just give a quick introduction to yourself, please, Audrey.
I launched my first book.
You're breaking up there, Audrey. Maybe go a little bit closer.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi is not great at home here. I live outside Cullen in Kildare, and I launched my first children's book in 2015 and my second last year. So hopefully launching my third book late next year.
Very, very good. So we'll go into a bit more detail now in a minute. And next we have Amanda Keogh. How are you, Amanda?
Hi, how are you? How are you keeping?
Not too bad.
Good. Yes, so I'm in Newbridge in Kildare as well, and I'm the author of TJ and His Wheelable Chair, and my latest book, The Adventures of TJ and His Wheelable Chair, and they're based on my son Tig, who's 12 years old, and just they're about creating more awareness about children with different abilities.
That's amazing. Thanks very much. So going into a bit more detail now in a minute. Emma Jane, so just tell us about where the original idea came from. Obviously the rhyme must have been something that stuck with you for a bit, was it?
Yeah. So every night when we were small, it was Mammy's job to read us a book, but Daddy came in and made up stories telling about Johnny Magory for myself, my sisters, and my brother. And he basically told them in a way that we believed Johnny Magory was real all the time. But then he also, the way he told the stories, we couldn't wait to get outside and go exploring and have these adventures like him. So when my daughter Lily came around, then I was 18 when I had Lily, but I just scribbled down some stories about Johnny Magory, the way Daddy had told him, and then left him in a box for 12 years until coming up to my 30th. Then Mum said, would you not do something with the books? And that's kind of, I suppose, what happened. So.
Very good. So kind of what this thing is about is kind of encouraging people to maybe give it a go themselves. So just tell us, so you had this idea, you had this rhyme, you wrote down a few bits, and of course your dad told the stories, but that's very, very different from actually having a published book. So you want to tell us how you got the first book and how it happened?
Yeah, so I've self-published all of the books and have actually now left my corporate job and run full-time Johnny McGorry basically. But yeah, so I suppose when I got the idea, I had no intention of ever being an author, never went to a publisher, didn't bother with any of that route. But started speaking to the likes of Dolores Keaveney, who is just an absolute legend, who is self-published author from Mullingar and has a ton of books, and she's brilliant. And then I suppose Benji Bennett as well, then from Adam to Cloud, just, how did you do it? What did you do? Kind of thing. And Dolores ended up then, I'd say she hates me, but she mentored me through the entire thing, start to finish. She was actually meant to illustrate the books to begin with, but she had an eye problem at the time anyway, so I ended up then finding Kim Shaw and I suppose partnered them with Kim for the lot of them. But yeah, but as Dolores said, she was just like, you might as well do them professional from the outset. And I was like, well, I don't intend on ever doing that. And she goes, but sure, you might as well. Sure, of course, I have my big salary and everything at the time. So I was like, oh yeah, grand. So yeah, so I suppose it kind of just grew organically then. So like we printed off like 100 books to begin with, and the girls in the office started asking me to buy the books. I was mortified. I was like, no, I'm not an author, like I just got them for like my cousins and my aunt and my nana and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, got the first one out and then thought it was great. Just best feeling in the world, and just went through the second and third, and then eventually let Kerry Group then at the end of March last year, and John Conroy then agreed to illustrate my next book, so which was unbelievable life goal. But yeah, it was just, I don't know, from talking to other people is ultimately how I ended up doing it.
So how did you go about the process of picking the pages and page sizes, and like there's an awful lot to publishing your book. So how did you pick the format, or how did that work?
Yeah, so I have 3 kids and love absolutely, the house is full of children's books. So I suppose Dolores said, she was like, start looking through the books that you like, the ones that really stand out and the ones that the kids love. So that was kind of where I got my format and ideas from, and it was pulling out. Obviously, Julie Donaldson was there, but then like there was other ones. What's on, Charlie and Lola, and just tons of them anyway, but it was just literally pulling out bits by bits by bits, and then ultimately doing my 24-page spread and putting in where I wanted pictures and what I thought it was, and just trying to, I suppose, get the idea out of my head and onto paper and handing it to Kim then.
Very good. So what's your kind of editing processes? How do you do it all yourself, or?
No, I wish. No, I use Aoife Barrett from Dublin, so Barrett Editing, and she is an absolute legend as well. So that was Dolores put me in touch with her, said this one's great, go to her, and sure enough, Aoife is absolutely just brilliant. So I can't edit.
No, most people can't, and look, it's a specialized skill as well, and most people have the kind of publishers there to do that job. So when you do it all yourself, you don't realize that you actually have to do it yourself. So you got a professional editor from day one.
Yeah, from day one. But the difference, and I actually kind of laughed going, I don't need an editor. And then literally her first draft back, I was like, oh my word, do I need an editor? But still, each time for each book, and even this far in, it comes back and forth 3 times between us before it's settled. And that's 800 words up to 1,400 words in the last book, say, for instance. Like, it's not huge, but the difference an editor makes, it's absolute one thing people can't scrimp on. So.
Well, that's it. Yeah, no, that's brilliant advice for people. So thanks very much for that. So Audrey, how are you? Can you hear us, Audrey?
I'm good.
So how did you do? Yeah, I can hear you there now. So how did you start off? Where did the ideas come from, and how did you get the first book going? Can you hear me? Okay, Amanda, skip on to you. I'm afraid there's something wrong with Audrey. Audrey, maybe just go to better Wi-Fi so you can get a better spot there. I'll try you again in a second. Are you there?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you there now. So how did you get the very first idea, and where did the ideas come from, and how did you get the first book out? Okay, Amanda, I'm going to skip over to you. Hopefully we sort it out. So Amanda, how did you get the first idea? How did it work?
Yeah, well, for me, it was kind of sitting at my kitchen table one day, and my son, TJ, he's nonverbal, and I just wanted people to know, like, that he loved to do what other children wanted to do, and, loved to play and be around other kids and his peers. So I just started jotting down notes and then started rhyming it, and just really enjoyed the process. It was kind of like therapy for me as well. And at the end of it, like, I didn't expect it to be a book, to be honest. It was just more for clearing my own mind and giving an idea from Tig's perspective. So it was kind of his voice. And afterwards, when I put everything down on paper and started rhyming it, I showed it to my husband, and he really liked it. And he said, I really feel it's a great way to show other people and to help them have a better understanding of what Tig's about. And he was the one who basically advised me to go and send it off to a publisher. I mean, I did not see it as a book at all, and it was a very personal journey for me. So the next step then was I showed my sister, and she said the same thing. She said, sure, what have you got to lose? You don't have to tell anyone. So that's what I did. I sent it off to a couple of publishers, and a UK publisher came back to me and they said they were interested in it. So signed the contract with them and started the publishing journey. So it got published then in December 2016 with Austin Macaulay in the UK, and they basically had their own illustrators and, you know, did the editing and everything. So not like Emma did so much hard work for her books. I have no experience of that side, but like all the illustrations in my two books, they're based on photos and experiences that, you know, Tig has experienced, where, you know, adventures he's gone on, or just, you know, out playing, just so when children are reading the books, they can relate to them and they can see that this is actually a real person and he loves doing everything they love to do, but just maybe has to do it a little bit differently.
That's a brilliant approach to it. So TJ is in a wheelchair bound, is he?
He is, yeah. He's a wheelchair user and he's non-verbal. So like that, he can't go up to, say, a child and say, oh, can I play with you? So that's really where the inspiration came from for me, because like that, when I'm out and about, of two other children, they're able to run over and join a group if they're in the playground, where TJ can't do that. You know, he relies on people to come up to him, and he relies on, you know, people to understand that he's not going to answer back, but we can communicate in other ways. We don't always use our voice, we use expression, you know, we have signs, and it's just all about teaching other people that side of things. And when, like, we've gone out doing readings, TJ has come to a lot of them, and it's been brilliant, because afterwards we do a Q&A and we always get so many questions. And like that, that's what it's all about, is asking those questions and not feeling that you can't, because it's so important. Once anyone has an understanding, sure, that's all kids want to do. They just want to know, why is TJ in a wheelchair? Did he break his legs? Or, you know, does he sleep in his wheelchair? That's all the kind of questions I would get. And it's just brilliant. It's brilliant to be able to answer it for kids.
That's brilliant. So the kids you're breaking down the barriers yourself and letting people know what TJ's life is like. So really, really like that. And it's a brilliant approach. So fair play to you. So Audrey, I'm going to try you again there. How are you?
Internet is so bad here.
No problem. So it's an ad for June Fest. It's not for your internet provider, so we're all right. So Audrey, so you had the idea for the book. So how did it happen from the initial idea, and how did you get your first book published?
So when my second daughter, Eleanor, was about 2 years old, I got into a very bad habit of having to lie down with her and rub her little hand to get her to sleep. So it could take 2 hours some nights, or 10 minutes other nights. And one night, an idea for just why pandas only ate bamboo came into my head, and then I just went down and typed up the story on my laptop, and just went from there, really, just fleshed it out. And I googled publishers, and I suppose an American one just came up straight away with Google, and I emailed them about it, and they gave me a contact of an illustrator, who's Kim Spinagle, who I absolutely love her illustrations. They're very old school. And she agreed to illustrate the book, but she was booked up from the February to the September, so I had to wait for a few months before she was able to be free. And but I was so green. I had never done anything like this before, so she was able to put it into book format for me, and the page layouts and all that sort of stuff.
So Kim looked after all that stuff. She had all the technical inside of it.
The page layout. She gave me contact of professional children's editor as well, which, as Emma Jane said, is just so important, because you think it's only 700 to 800 words. So how hard could it be, you know? And but once you get 2 or 3 rounds back, and mistakes that you can make, because I would have put stuff in past tense and things like that you wouldn't be aware that you're doing. So it's really, really important.
Oh, that's brilliant advice there, and we even found it doing our shackling as well, doing the different tenses and stuff. Especially with our one was historical, so we were thinking back, but the story is actually happening at the time. So yeah, that's great advice there. So Emma Jane, back to yourself. So, what are the books, and tell us a bit more about each one of them, please.
Yeah, so this was my first one, so Johnny McGorry and the Magical Wild. So basically, this they all kind of are inspired by a location very close by. So this one's like Ballinafaly, Cooters in the Bogs or whatever, but it can really be any place in the world. But introduces the character, he gets in trouble. So this is the whole concept, is that he's usually good, but he's sometimes bold, basically. And then there's all Irish kind of statements and language wove through it as well. But in this one, he goes down a bog hole, or a rabbit hole, sorry, and goes and has like a party in the forest, whatever. But he's late home from lunch, gets in trouble. Then all is okay, come the evening. This next one, then, and that one's all about, it's a game of rounders. So it's educate kids just on the heritage of foot and turf, and then obviously the legendary game of rounders. But he gets in trouble for not working and foot and the turf. Basically, this one here is the Wild Water Race. It's all about canals and rivers and the heritage around our barrages and why we have them. And then that's the Don Conroy one. So it's all about Black Yule and just to educate kids on music history, basically here, and then to get climbing trees. So
very, very good. So so it's Kim that did your books?
Yeah, so Kim did the first 3, yeah, and then Don Conroy did the last one, but Kim is doing the next 2 as well. So we have the next 2 out within the next 6 months of each other.
Very good. So how did you get in touch with Kim originally, and how did that come about?
Yeah, so I found Kim on illustratorsireland.ie or illustratorsireland.com. That's basically where I found Kim. And what I had in my head was that I wanted a kind of like Anne and Barry style books when we used to go to school. That really simple, lovely, clean drawings. And yeah, I loved her portfolio. And Kim actually, she does all the school books now as well at the minute for Folens and everything. So any of the Irish books and English books with any of the illustrations, it's Kim that illustrates them. So she's brilliant.
Very good. So what was the actual process? Were you just sent her the script and just gave it all to her, or was there like character design tests, or how would that happen?
Yeah, so there was a good bit around how Johnny McGorry looked. Really, the other, I mean, Daddy didn't really give 2 sods about, but Johnny McGorry, I suppose, was based on my neighbour who I grew up with, who was a gurrier, as Daddy would say. So it was very much trying to get him looking like that. And then, like, as the other characters were introduced, then, so Lily May, she's based on a picture of my daughter, Lily Marie, and then the granddad in it is actually my granddad. There's a lot of actually people from my family, and the animals from my family are incorporated into it as well in the illustrations. But pretty much for Kim, for the first one, no, I knew what I wanted, but let her off with it and came back. Obviously, there was a few tweaks, but like, woman is just genius.
Very, very good. So that's the whole professional thing happening. In so, how did you pick the style and tone? You just had that Anne and Barry style, and that was it, really, was it?
Yeah, so see, I think because I never intended on anybody else reading these books, I knew kind of from the outside, well, I'm going to do it my way. And yes, I'm including phrases like go have the crack and do this, that, other in it. Like, you know, because I was like, I don't care who, nobody else is going to read them. so I knew in my head what I wanted, basically, and then just went with that. But again, it was based then on other books that I had read. So like, I knew that I wanted like the text woven through and, you know, like kind of down so the kids can follow it with their fingers, because I know my old girls love doing that, and Evan did as well, like, you know, so anyways, it's kind of, yeah.
Very good. So you had a good visual sense of it anyway when you're starting out, so that's brilliant. How about you, Amanda? Did your publisher work all of that stuff for you, or you
Yeah,
asked?
Yeah, it was kind of a joint, like I did a lot of involvement in it. So, with say my first book, TJ and his readable chair, if you can see it there, um, like I had a lot to say in how the text would look. So, because it was my very first book and I wanted it to be for the younger audience, I made the text kind of bigger and clear, and all the images in the book are based on real photos. Sorry, I don't actually have the real photos with me, but every image is based on that. So it was kind of going back and forth, and then they'd come back with the design and see if I was happy with it. And it did take a lot of back and forth before we kind of got there. And I felt that like TJ was portrayed the way I wanted him to be portrayed. I didn't want like a child in a wheelchair throwing a ball, because that's not TJ and that's not the message. So it did take a while, and I did feel that's why I had to use photos so they could get what I was trying to express,
Very good. So were you given an option at the illustrator, or did
No,
they
I
give you?
wasn't.
And
Yeah.
you obviously had some kind of conversation to and from with the illustrator, did you?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember like it took about, I'd say about 3 to 4 months of back and forth. Probably nearly every night they'd come back with like say a drawing, and then I'd go back saying, yeah, that looks good, or could you change this, or his expression mightn't be correct, like like there was one, for example, in the second book, the latest book, TJ goes on an adventure, and one part in this book they had an illustration with him pointing to the London Eye. Now TJ wouldn't do that, so I just said, look, maybe can we put his hands on his lap? So things like that, you just have to iron out, and then we get there.
No, that's very, very interesting. And as an illustrator, I'd find that stuff very hard, because
Yeah.
you'd have your design rules and you have all your things, but they had to really change that. So that's very, very interesting how that happens.
Yeah,
And
and they were very helpful. I mean, because like that, I obviously didn't want to make their job any harder, and they were great. And I did feel giving them as many photos as I possibly could gave them a base, so they knew what the illustrations should kind of be about. And I was just trying to help them, because it's very hard when you're trying to describe that in an email or on the phone. It's very difficult. You really need to see the real TJ, to capture the images.
yeah, no, that's very good. And from an illustration point of view, would they have given you rough kind of concept stuff, or was it like pencil sketches, or?
Yeah, so initially I got the pencil sketches, and then I got them kind of colored in or whatever, all colored in. And that was then when I would finalize it. And then once I was happy with it, that was it, signed off, and we moved on then to the next illustration. So I might get 3 at a time, or 6 at a time to check. And then once I was happy with all of them, we moved on.
Very, very good. So was it all the kind of physical stuff that you were changing, or would you say
Yeah,
change the
pretty
color
much.
schemes, or?
Yeah, no, do you know what? With the first book, I think I was so green. I mean, I like that. I didn't even expect it to be a book. So everything, I was like, oh, that's great. That's great. Where with the second book, I wanted more consistency with the illustrations, and I was just so happy with the way they did it. I felt it really flowed better. The images flowed better. Where my first one, I was really about just getting the message out there and creating the awareness. And with the second book, it was more about the fun stuff that TJ does, bringing people on an adventure with him, where, so there were two kind of different messages. And I think with the second one, I was a little bit more confident in going back and saying what I wanted.
That's very good. So was there one illustrator, or was there a number of people involved?
There was one illustrator, but like there would be a number of illustrators through the publisher, but I was dealing just with the one. So I had the one contact through the whole time. And it was actually the same illustrator as the first book. So it kind of helped, because I had the 2 books through Austin Macaulay. They kind of had a better idea for the second one. So I think it just seemed to happen more quickly. It was easier.
No, absolutely. That's a confidence thing in yourself, and having the the idea and you kind of know what you wanted. So that's really, really cool. So Audrey, how are you? Do you want to tell us a little bit about individual books and how the process between each one, please? Can't hear you
Polly
again.
is my first book. Am I back? Can you hear me?
Can hear you there now, yeah.
So Ping and Polly is my first book, and it's about a little panda who is 2 years old and a little girl, Polly, who's 6 years old. And it's set in the Asian rainforest. So the panda gets bored of eating bamboo, and he embarks on a food adventure through the Asian rainforest with Polly and tries new food. And all the food in the book represents the food from the food pyramid. And then we also there's 3 little birds, if I can find them here. They're called birds, and they're on every page as well, so the kids have good fun picking them out through the story. And there are facts about all the animals that feature in the book. They're all endangered, and it tells the children why they have become endangered. And then there's fun things at the back as well, like a word search and a fun map as well. So that's the first book.
That's very good. So how did the process for that happen, Audrey? Did you have all that in your mind at the beginning, or was it a kind of collaborative process, or how did that work?
It was a slow process because it took months and months for me to get the story out onto my laptop, and then to be comfortable to send it to publishers. So I sent it to Penguin and a few publishers here in Ireland, but they just came back and said, need to work more on the story, but keep going. And I sent it then to it was a self-publishing publisher in America, and they published it for me over there, but it was done in hardback, so I had to do it over here in paperback. So I still had to get the ISBN barcode and all that sort of thing, and a printing home as well. But like Emma Jane said and Amanda, I had an idea for what the characters looked like. So I gave a synopsis for each character to the illustrator, and then she came back with character sketches of them. And then I tweaked a few different things, like the orangutan looked a bit older than what I wanted him to be. So I asked her to make him younger and kind of mad crazy hair and that kind of thing. But it just worked out perfectly. What I had in my head for the characters, Kim it was like she was in my head. She was brilliant as well. So it was great.
Very good.
She met the whole.
That's very good. So she's quite a traditional. She was all kind of painted, hand done, and all that. So, yeah. So how did all the word searching, how did all the facts, and did you have all that stuff in mind at the beginning, or did you just think about it, and how did that happen?
Like the story changed a few months, you know what I mean? What in the middle and end mightn't have worked the first few times I done it, so I had to kind of change it around. But the editing process really helped. Okay, that's in your head, and you think that you're explaining this to the audience, but you're not really. So that was good for me to see that as well. But yeah, it was an interesting process.
So did you have like the page count in mind, or was that from the publisher, or was that a set format, or how did that work out?
The self-publishing publisher I used for the first book, I didn't find it great, so I just published it for my second book. But to be honest, the editor and illustrator done all the page layout, the word count, they really helped me, because I was totally green. So there is a team, when you start off something like this, you get overwhelmed, but there is a team in place when you're doing it.
Yeah, very good. That's very good.
The publisher, illustrator.
Brilliant stuff, guys. So listen, I'm just going to have a chat to you about how these are all the lockdown chats, and have a chat to you about how COVID-19 affected your process, or did it affect you? Maybe it didn't, or maybe it helped. So Emma Jane, how did lockdown treat you?
Yeah, it was mad. I was actually in a school the day it was announced. So I suppose, like, from a selling point of view, we have all of our events throughout the summer that kind of, we sell most of our book sets. So everything from the likes of June Fest right up to we're meant to be at Bloom this year, and Kaleidoscope and the latest City Specs and all that kind of stuff again. So when that all went, it was a fairly big blow. But But to be honest, the Kildare Leo were fantastic. So I always had my website set up to sell, but never pushed it and never really optimized it or anything. So I got their business continuity voucher, got it optimized straight away, and then actually started selling online properly. So, so to be honest, packing orders and everything kind of kept us going here from a mental point of view, of nothing else, having something to do every day. And then, and then just kind of within a week or two, then I took all my workshops online to Zoom. So just from, I suppose, my corporate career in Kerry, I would have delivered across the world to everybody. So I was like, let's try this with kids. And so we started kind of selling our workshops into schools and libraries and everything then online, which went great, thank God. So I don't know, it was great. It was actually great to not be driving around like a blue arse fly everywhere and going to college and going to blah, 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 blah. And, you know, just being at home actually with kids and having my husband home for 7 weeks. We actually thought we'd kill each other within 2 weeks, but we didn't. Happy days. So and then I missed him when he went back to work, which I didn't see coming. But anyway, it was great. And then I started writing. I actually had loads of time to write. So like I went on and actually written and self-published proper books now, not proper books, but like chapter books that aren't Johnny McGorry books, and did my own illustrations and everything for them as well. So I know it's been awful for an awful lot of people, but we personally anyway found it great from a family point of view, and then from a business point of view as well. It just changed the whole business up. So
very, very, very good. So you changed things very, very quickly and completely changed your model for COVID-19.
Yeah. So, but like, to be honest, I think like it for the best by a long shot. Like I actually, sorry, when the lockdown did lift, then I got to go back to one place in front of kids, and I felt really weird then. I was like, oh my word, there's real people. so I did anyway. It went again, but that was just down in Tribart Studio in Castle Dermot Rose. It was great to do it, but anyways, I think kind of like, not that I prefer a new model, you obviously miss being in front of people now, but I think from a safety point of view, and then even thinking of my own kids and interacting with people, and it's mad how the mind changes. But anyways, enjoying this now at the minute.
So it didn't come without stresses anyway. You lost your hair in the middle of that.
Yeah, so in the middle of it, my husband had started cutting my hair disastrously, so then I just decided to shave the whole lot off for Crumlin, and we made $4,000 in the meantime, so I was happy.
Very good. So you shaved your head for charity there, didn't you?
Yeah. So for Crumlin, so a percentage anyway of all the books always goes to Crumlin, so big links there for my own kids and myself growing up. But anyways, it was grand. It's just growing back now. I don't know what I look like. So.
You're not wearing a hat, so you're obviously confident enough. You're all right.
Oh, I just decided, feck it, I was living in a hat.
So Amanda, how do things work with you for COVID-19? How did it affect you, your work or whatever?
Yeah, well, the second book was published the end of February, and then we went into lockdown 2 weeks later. So I feel I've kind of, everything came to a halt, and I didn't, everything just kind of stopped for me because the new book had come out, but I'd no way to really get it out there with the school shut and the libraries shut and everything. So I just kind of kept it going on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, trying to get the message out there. And then Woodbine Books, very kindly, they took in a consignment of my books. They're brilliant. And a couple of other bookshops around Newbridge, which was really, really helpful. And then the publisher had put it online as well. So that's kind of all I've done. I haven't even gone to visit a school. I haven't officially launched the second book yet. So I still have to do all of that. I think with the kids being at home, and especially for Tig, it was a massive change for him. So there was a lot of adjusting and a lot of trying to kind of keep him busy as well, because like that, it's not like he can, go out and kick a ball or anything. So that was kind of really where all my time was focused on the last few months. And then I was off work as well and went back then in June. So it's been a very strange time. I did really enjoy being home and with the kids. And once we got past that first, I'd say 3 weeks, the initial 3 weeks were the hardest. And then once Ty got into a new routine, it was a little bit easier. He just had to adjust to being at home with mum and dad every single day, which, a pre-teenage boy doesn't necessarily want to be around. But so in relation to book promoting, I haven't done much over the lockdown. I'm trying to only start now, and I just finished my website today. So I launched that this afternoon. Finally, took me about 3 months to do, but I just gave myself the kick I needed and got it out there today. So
Very
like
good.
that.
Do you want to tell us what the website is?
It's www.amandakyoebooks.com. So you'll just have information on the 2 books, on my journey to becoming an author, and a little bit about TJ as well. So it's very simple, and I will add to it over time. I'm just delighted I could actually do it. I never thought I'd be able to do my own website. So yeah, it was great.
That's very good.
Great.
So, very good. So was the lockdown a good experience for yourself, Amanda? Like, how did it affect TJ? Was it what did
Yeah.
it help with having his sister or dad at home, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very mixed experience, to be very honest with you. A lot of good and a lot of, we had a few ups and downs. And like, with our other 2 children, we could explain to them, and in the school, it was explained to them there's COVID and, this is the reason you have to be at home. Where for TJ, that's much more difficult for him to comprehend. And, for him to be at home every single day and not have, the interaction with his peers, or even the bus journey to school, that was really difficult, and he really did miss it. Now, the only good thing, his school did a Zoom once a week, and we sang songs and, did poems and that kind of thing. And he loved listening to his teachers and listening to the other kids in his class laughing, and it was a lovely experience, and it did help. Once we had a structure in place, it got easier, but it did take about 3 weeks until we got that kind of routine where we got up at a certain time and just made the day a certain way, where we made sure he'd get out for a walk every day and just keep him as busy as we could. Where my other 2 kids loved the lockdown, do not want to go back to school. So, you have a different opinion on it. So
Very, very good. Thanks a million, for Amanda. Audrey, how about yourself? How did lockdown treat you, and professionally or at home, or how did it work out for you?
She worked out. I know it's a horrible thing to say, but it worked out great, because I was kind of stuck in a rat race. Myself, the kids, Ray, were just running around like everybody is at the moment. So it was nice to actually just take time out. Now, I was still able to work. I work part-time as a legal executive in Hannahos in Naas. I was able to still go into work, so that it seemed still very normal. And my husband Ray works as well, so he was just flat out completely. Having the kids home was great. Hard for the teenager in a way. We live out in the country, so it's hard. But other than that, it's fine now. Obviously, professionally, with the schools closed, that was a big part of what I would have done. So I found that hard, and I probably not comfortable with Zoom or kind of giving talks online, so I have to kind of work on that myself. So it's something I just have to change up a bit, I suppose. But I've just been very good at social media. Still a lot of sales through my website, so that hasn't changed. And I have a fantastic girl, Rebecca Carter, doing the marketing for me. She only started about 4 months ago, so seeing a huge difference with her now with Instagram and Facebook and things like that. So yeah, so all around positive.
Very, very good. So that's very good. How about you, Ken? You still on us, Ken? Do you want to tell us how lockdown life treated you and how things worked out for you, and the podcast, of course?
Yeah, I mean, from a working point of view, it obviously meant that I had to stop doing a lot of what I normally do. I work in the service industry, so that came to a grinding halt. I mean, we're still trying to get back on our feet a little bit. But from a lifestyle point of view, yeah, it was a major change for us, because I work for myself. I generally do spend a lot of the time at home when I'm not working. So for us, it's normal to spend time with the kids during the day. I think for Lydia, it's probably the biggest impact is that, because she simply misses school. I think everyone's talking kind of about, how it impacts on adults. But I think on the children, it's impacting quite severely, because school is just not the way school was when I went to school. School is a social entity now where children look forward to going to. So I think that's the kind of going forward, that's the concern that I have more than anything, that because adults deal with issues and situations, but children have to adapt with the problems, and sometimes they don't adapt too well. So I'm hoping that the schools will come back, because as everyone has said here, it's an integral part of everyday life now. 20 years ago, authors wouldn't have gone to schools. Now it's a part of that sort of process, and children look forward to that, and they really love that. So my hope is that whatever happens, the schools will open, because I think that kids need to have the security and the grounding that school gives them, because parents react to situations like COVID, and obviously they do the best they can, but the school is there. It's kind of like this rock that children nowadays need. So I really hope that in 2 weeks' time, particularly in primary school, that we can all see that back. So that's really the one thing I would like to say, is that the impact about COVID.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much for that, Ken.
Yeah.
And Saoirse, how are you? Thanks for your patience.
That's no problem.
Do you want to just give a quick introduction of who you are, and let us know how COVID-19 and that affected yourselves there in Woodbine?
So I'm Saoirse, and I run a lot of the kids area in Woodbine Books in Kilcullen. And we closed during lockdown for 2 weeks, and it was just 2 of the most horrible weeks of my life. I did get a good bit of reading done in there, but then we opened, myself and Dawn were in the shop for a couple of hours a day. Then we were able to fulfill online orders, and luckily we had just got the website set up literally just before lockdown was announced, so the website orders kept us busy.
Very good. So was there much impact? You're trying to sell stuff online. I know you were trying to had a few things there where there's a desk across the door and you're handing stuff over. And...
Yeah, it was a lot of it was online for a while, and we had great support. We were sending books everywhere, all over Ireland, and An Post actually did a deal for independent bookshops, a postage rate of $2.95, so that was so helpful. And then on the 8th of June, I think it was, we opened just at the door. We had our screens up and people could come in and ask us for something or collect our orders, and then eventually we kind of opened more and more. And now we're open weekdays 10 to 5, and we can have one person in the shop or one group in at a time, or we offer browsing appointments, which is pretty cool.
Very good, very good. So guys, I'm just going to get you to tell us where people can get your books. So please advertise your websites and that. So Emma Jane, do you want to tell us the website and where people can get your books?
Yeah, so johnnymcgorry.com is website, and then in the independents, so Woodbine and Maynooth and the guys in Naas and Newbridge. Yeah, but yeah, just look up johnnymcgorry.com and everywhere's listed anyway there and that.
So you're fairly active on Instagram and Twitter and everything else there as well?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, and if you just look up the hashtag Johnny McGorry, you'll find us.
No problem. How about yourself, Amanda? You've the website just set up, you said, and you
Yeah.
want to tell us about your publisher and that as well?
Yeah, so Austin Macaulay, austinmacaulay.com, you can buy the book directly from them, or you can obviously buy it from the local bookshops, Woodbine, Books in Kilcullen and Farrell and Nephew, and it's also in Newbridge Silverware. Like that as well, if you look it up online, you should see it. I try and promote it on Facebook and Instagram. On the Facebook, it's under TJ and His Wheelable Chair. And anyone can message me or whatever if they wanted a book, a signed copy or anything. Be more than happy to send one out.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much, Amanda. And yourself, Audrey, do you want to tell us about your website and what you're involved in and promoting the book and things like that? Can you hear us, Audrey?
My website is www. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Here now, you went off.
The website is www.audreymorebooks.com. The website is audreymorebooks.com, And sorry, I mentioned the second book as well. It's Ping and Pauline First Rescue, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places as well.
Very, very good. Thanks very much for that. And Ken, yourself, do you want to tell us? I think you told us earlier on, but there's a specific site or anything like that for the podcast?
No, there isn't actually. We're on Twitter and under Lydia's Booktastic Podcast, and we are on, I think, YouTube, which we've just uploaded all of the podcasts there over the last 2 weeks. So that's probably a good place to catch us. And then on Anchor is our main lead hosting platform. But as I said, if you just go to Google and you just put in Lydia's Booktastic Podcast, I wouldn't say you'd find many Lydia's Booktastic podcasts around the world. So it's probably going to be ours. And it usually appears on the top page there. So then you can make the decision whether you want to listen to us on Apple or Google Podcasts or whatever.
You're fairly unique there with a little girl giving her podcast about her favorite book. So that's a
Yeah.
good job anyway.
Well, it's only a matter of time before somebody in the United States cops on, but the Irish will always do it better.
Thanks very much, folks. Listen,
No
thanks
worries.
very much, guys.
Thank you.
I'm going to have a quick chat with Saoirse here, telling us all about Woodbine Books. But I just want to thank you all for being part of Lockdown Chats episode 4, talking about children's books. So thanks very much, guys.
Thank you very much.
And Saoirse, thanks very much. So you won an award there last year.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I didn't tell you I was going to drop that one.
No, you didn't.
Because I knew you wouldn't say anything. So do you want to tell us what happened?
Oh God. It's the James Patterson Young Bookseller of the Year award, and I was actually just going home from work one day, and Dawn ran after me and just showed me her phone, and it was an email saying that I had been awarded it. She had nominated me with like a little essay on what I'd done to deserve it, and yeah, I got it.
Excellent stuff. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the book clubs in Woodbine, please?
Oh yeah, they are. I actually miss them so much. So I ran, hopefully we'll run again. 3 children and young adult book clubs. They go from 10 to 12, 12 to 14, and 14 plus. And we used to meet every fortnight, and that turned to monthly, to discuss a book that we had chosen, and it was brilliant.
So how do you pick the books? You look at the age group and
Yeah, so Inish used to send out a magazine. I think it was twice a year, and that used to have loads of recommendations for all different kids' ages, and it used to highlight which ones were Irish authors. So we tried to kind of lean towards them more so. And you'd ask the kids, you want to know what do they want to read as well. You can't just enforce boring things on them, or you're just going to lose their interest. So we'd go through nominations or whatever, and things that were kind of maybe relevant, like Claire Hennessy's Good Girls Don't. We did that a couple of years ago for the older group, and yeah.
Very good. So do you want to tell us a little bit about, obviously not naming names or anything like that, but the types of kids that are involved in book clubs and why you recommend book clubs or joining them, or for people to set up their own, maybe?
So what we did, we had a shelf, and we just had the 3 different books of the month, and parents would come in, they'd be like, oh, you do book clubs, and then we'd give them a little bit of information about the stuff we did. So maybe I might have questions done out on books, but mostly we try to encourage the children to lead the discussions themselves, to hear what they had to say, because some of their opinions are absolutely brilliant, and proper inspirational as well. But it was just kids all over the area who just loved reading and wanted to come down. There was no one there that felt like they had to be there or didn't want to be there. They'd come in and be asking me when's the next meeting going on, and there'd be parents texting me the child wants to know when's the next meeting going on, to drive me mad. So yeah, they're really enthusiastic.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's a really unique thing in Woodbines that you've really copped onto there. But that's really great insight. Is there anything about how you support local artists and writers, and want to tell us bits and pieces about that?
Yeah, so some of them would maybe contact us, through email or social media, and ask us if we'd be interested in stocking their book. And with local authors and artists, we're always just yes, come to us. And sometimes we'd maybe seek them out on Instagram or different social medias, and we had there was one that was dropped into us recently at a distance, of course, by Cressida Lynch, who's from Wicklow, and it's just so beautiful. It's a haiku about a little family going on an adventure, and it's really magical to be able to meet the authors, like, you know, face to face, and know that you're a part of this journey with them when they're starting off. That's a really great experience.
I seen your Instagram post on that, and I actually contacted her straight away. And she's amazing. She's all the books are all cut out artwork and stuff. So I thought it was really, really cool. And we're talking about having her as a guest at Celticon, and
Brilliant.
we're hoping to do like kind of mini magazines and stuff with her, and workshops and stuff. So want to tell about what people can do or what kind of stuff you offer there at Woodbine?
Just, well, it's harder now to kind of do things. Like, we're only starting to really get into the social media, like myself and Dawn. We should probably be a little bit more active, but there's just so much to learn and get used to, and especially now, like, we're doing school books, so they seem to be demanding more of our attention. But just contact us. We're so happy to help anyone, to be a part of anyone's journey, to read new books, you know, new experiences. Yeah, and like, we'll find our feet eventually with, you know, the likes of Zoom and, you know, online launches and stuff. It's all very new, but it's new to everyone. So
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. No, just from myself as an illustrator, you're great. You guys are a great supporter for my graphic novel, and just we did illustration workshops and stuff in there. It's just brilliant, and it's great having the whole the book club kind of set kind of targets. So it's like a little mini class there.
yeah.
And again, of course, you have Brian there from Kilcullen News and stuff.
Oh, we'd be lost without Brian. He's like our biggest advertisement. He's brilliant.
He's brilliant. So do you want to tell us a little bit what he does and where?
Yeah, so Brian runs the Kilcullen Bridge blogspot, which keeps everyone up to date about absolutely everything that is happening in and around the town. And he was actually one of the first customers to buy one of our new book bundles off us, and he promoted that on his website. And I think that really kicked off the bundles for us. Yeah.
Excellent stuff. So, sorry, I kind of caught you in the half with that one. I kind of realized once I said it that you don't really know how the ins and outs. But no, listen, guys, we're coming up to the hour there, so I'm absolutely delighted to have you all involved. And we had the three guys and our guests, and we hope to have you in the future with your new books. And just from ourselves and Junefest, we'd like to thank you all for taking part. And for anyone watching on, if you would like to throw a donation to Junefest, we'll greatly appreciate it. It's junefest.ie. There's donating there. And maybe if you don't want to donate money, maybe you want to donate a prize for the quiz. Guys are doing quiz, they're doing stuff like this, and they're doing, if you have any ideas or anything, the guys are all open for as well. So guys, thanks very much. This has been Lockdown Chats episode number 4, and thank you very much. For myself, Junefest and Celticon, we'd thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you again for the next one. Thank you very much.